deliver it. But I was speaking to Sam Gyimah earlier on the show, who said that he's going to try everything in his power to effectively block a no deal happening. And there are many MPs like it. He said up to 30 or at least 30 Conservative MPs who will do that. I mean, there's going to be an almighty parliamentary showdown, isn't there, in the autumn, if, as many think is the most likely thing to happen, a Boris Johnson Prime Minister tries to leave without a deal.
I thought it was very interesting Sam rode back from any suggestion that he would vote with Labour on a vote of no confidence. I think it was quite important. The more people come on your show, like Tobias Ellwood, Rory Stewart, Sam Gyimah, the more they actually back away from that. And I think there are
But he's been very clear about no deal, though, isn't he? That trying to use legislation to stop.
Sure.
You think that's impossible, then, do you?
No, I think there's two things here. There's a principled argument, which is that we all, Sam, myself, all of the Conservatives were elected on a manifesto which said that we would leave, come what may, with a deal or with no deal by the end of March. That hasn't happened. We're all...
no deal wasn't specifically in the...
It was absolutely explicitly in the manifesto. And we're all... It's incumbent on all of us as politicians to keep our promises. There's also then the practical side of things. We've had two attempts recently to take control of the order paper to deal with what are called the financial estimates, but basically government spending, and try and use that to choke the possibilities of leaving at the end of October. And so far, they've failed. And I think there has been a dawning since the European elections that we've got to get this delivered. The thing that is holding Britain back economically, politically, in every way is this rut we're in. We've got to get out of it, and we won't do that until we deliver Brexit.
At the same time, though, you know and I know that there are many MPs, a majority of MPs really, who are said that they are against a no-deal Brexit. Do you think that proroguing Parliament may be something that a future Prime Minister would have to look at to get that through?
No, I think it's highly unlikely.
But possible?
Well, I think it's highly unlikely, and Boris has been very clear about that, highly unlikely and undesirable.
But he hasn't ruled it out, as you didn't rule it out when you were
running. I think the issue about ruling things out is we want Brussels to have a very clear understanding, a very clear message that we'll leave at the end of October, come what may. And that is the way we give ourselves the best shot of getting a deal, which, in fairness, I think most of us want. So if you take WTO Brexit, if you take walking away off the table, you weaken our chances of getting a deal that we want.
So is it a negotiating tactic, then?
No, it's both. The principle of finality that I think the country needs so we can move on, but also it does give us, in any negotiation, whether it's a business negotiation, a diplomatic one, or a big political one like this, I think the other side need to know that you won't just accept any terms that they dictate.
So that effectively means that the threat to prorogue Parliament has got to be a genuine one, then?
No, I just think you say more generally across the board things won't be taken off the table.
I mean, some people would be really, really alarmed at this, that this is effectively overriding parliamentary sovereignty, which is what, the referendum was about.
No, I don't think so. Actually, what happened is that we, the politicians and MPs, gave to the British people the decision on this. And I don't think it's right, through all the shenanigans and devices and ruses that have been conjured up, that decision, which has been made by the British people, is somehow stolen back away from them. So actually this is about a higher duty, which is to give effect to the promises we've made to the people of this country.
We heard just before your interview from Minette Batters,
yes,
the president of the National Farmers Union, who was saying how devastating a no-deal Brexit would be for her industry. I mean, does that worry you? She also said that Boris Johnson, by the way, hadn't even bothered to reply to her letter.
Well, I don't know about the correspondence issue, and the NFU's position has been very clear throughout. Look, there are certainly some sectors, and we know about the just-in-time manufacturers, we know about the farmers, where there are some risks here, but we need to manage those risks with a can-do spirit, with giving clear indication that we'll support all of our sensitive industries through this. But let's also not just talk about the risks. This week alone, we've had Amazon announcing 2,000 new jobs in this country. We've had Jaguar Land Rover saying a new line of cars going to be built in the Midlands. We've had NTT, a massive...
But they also said about the importance of getting, a good Brexit deal through as well.
Sure, but they're making this decision come what may. And then we've had NTT, a big Japanese tech firm, saying that their 11 billion global business will be headquartered in the UK. I think the one thing above all people want to see is a bit of can-do spirit, some optimism, and that's why I think Boris Johnson is the guy that encapsulates that, epitomises that, and is the right person to lead us at this time.
Talking about can-do spirit, we all know how difficult the parliamentary arithmetic is when it comes to Brexit. Do you think that Boris Johnson might call a sneaky election in the autumn to try and change the numbers?
No, I don't think so. I think it's unlikely. But look, you know, you need to ask the team, and I think it's difficult to deal with hypotheticals, but I think it's unlikely. The reality is, leaving the EU is set as the default mechanism in legislation by the end of October. I think it's much more difficult than people are suggesting to try and overturn that. That is the will of Parliament, reflected as the default position.
Although it happened
law.
on the 29th of March, didn't it?
Well, sure, but the thing that will have changed is that we'll have, and I believe it will be Boris Johnson, a Prime Minister that is absolutely clear that he is going to lead this country out of the EU the end of October. And he's mentioned this. We want a wide-ranging cabinet. He's going to put together his team after he wins, if he wins, and I feel confident about that.
After he, yeah, you'd certainly do.
Well, no, we don't want to. But I think it is important we have some discipline in cabinet, and he's also talked a bit about that as well.
So, talk about the discipline in cabinet. Are you effectively saying that you need more Brexiteers around the table?
No, something different to that. I think you want a wide-ranging cabinet, and I want to be very careful to protect the prerogative of any Prime Minister to choose their top team. But I do think you need discipline and you need collective responsibility restored, and I think that's absolutely crucial.
So everyone signing up to the idea of a no-deal Brexit if necessary?
Well, I think in any team, whether you're in the media or in business, you have the discussions about what the right approach is, and then when the decision is made, of course you've got to stick and play for the team.
Or quit like you did, I guess.
Yeah. Ultimately, but in that case, don't sign up to it in the first place. I didn't quit because the government wasn't doing what I wanted. I quit because the government was living up to the promises that everyone in the cabinet and in Parliament, every Conservative, stood in the 2017 election on. So I believe that keeping our promises is crucial, and I believe Boris is the one that will lead us out at the end of October to make sure we keep that crucial promise.
Talking about an election.